The modern video game business is a world where you keep pumping out sequels as long as they make money. So it's only natural that the gaming public at some point is simply done with the series. Here are 10 more games that destroyed their own franchise. The Contra series was huge in the 8 and 16-bit era of gaming. Who doesn't have fond memories of these side-scrolling shooters? However, Konami really destroyed the franchise when they tried to bring it over to the PlayStation. Contra: Legacy of War was made by a different team, and that definitely shows. The gameplay was extremely clunky, and they changed the camera angle, which only made matters worse. They did get to make a sequel called C: The Contra Adventure, but the damage was already done. The Contra series never returned to its former glory, and it's pretty much dead today.
It's been tough, trying to fill his shoes. I hope I'm finally starting to earn it.
We are still really salty over this one, but we have to mention Mass Effect Andromeda in this video. While it's too early to say that it destroyed the franchise for good, it definitely did a lot of damage. The game launched with a lot of bugs and horrible animations. The story was pretty uninspiring, and the new cast of characters couldn't hold a candle to the beloved crew of the Normandy.
Let's talk about something else, okay?
After the immensely negative reception, EA put the Mass Effect series on ice, and we have no idea when we can expect a sequel. What a sad fate for one of the greatest game series of all time.
It's still not nearly as fun as dropping him.
I'll take your word for it.
I'll tell you everything I know.
Prince of Persia tried to make the jump to the world of 3D games with Prince of Persia 3D. It wasn't exactly a success because of its bad camera system and unresponsive controls. While gamers did admire the graphics at the time, the gameplay just made the game extremely frustrating. The Prince simply wasn't ready for 3D graphics until years later when Ubisoft revitalized the series with Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. They made a few good games until the Prince was put in the freezer again because of the success of Assassin's Creed. This guy just can't seem to catch a break. Dead Space defined the space horror genre when it came out in 2008. After an excellent sequel, EA slipped up with the launch of Dead Space 3 in 2013. The gameplay focused a lot more on action, which completely ruined the survival horror aspect of the series. It had a horrible microtransaction system as part of its weapon crafting system. EA's attempt to target a larger audience by turning it into a generic shooter backfired, and it ended up being the worst-selling game in the series. While the game isn't terrible, it pretty much destroyed the franchise for good.
We don't need cities or armies. We have the cells of human bodies. An invisible weapon for an invisible war.
The original Deus Ex changed first-person shooters forever, thanks to its amazing story and unique gameplay. However, when Deus Ex Invisible War launched, it wasn't as groundbreaking as gamers had hoped. Meanwhile, game studio Ironstorm got into some financial trouble, and it didn't take long before it shut its doors for good.
I could fight you, I guess, but okay. How about I give you a down payment on a leather jacket if you tell me about this Mr. P?
Understood. Business is business, right?
Weirdly enough, Deus Ex Invisible War wasn't that much of a commercial failure, as it sold about as many copies as the original. The expectations were simply too high, and it ended up ruining the franchise. It took 8 years before the series would be revived by Eidos with the excellent Deus Ex Human Revolution.
I never asked for this.
We have fond memories of playing Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64. The platform franchise gave us some of the best collectathons ever made. After Microsoft bought developer Rare, we were all hoping they would bring the iconic franchise to the Xbox 360. And they did, but in a completely bizarre way. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts focused way more on vehicle construction than traditional platforming. While it's one of the most unique games in recent years, it didn't go over well with the fans. The game was a commercial failure and buried the Banjo-Kazooie franchise for good. Alex Kidd is one of those long-forgotten platform heroes nobody talks about nowadays. It was pretty much the Sega mascot in the early 90s until Sonic the Hedgehog stole his lunch. The Blue Hedgehog wasn't the only reason for the demise of the franchise. The fifth game in the series, Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, got widely criticized. It had bad controls and a weird rock-paper-scissors minigame that kept popping up. They did release one game after that, but the damage was already done. So let's all pour one out for poor old Alex Kidd.
Well, I'd be proud just to shake your hand. Sir, thank you, sir. It was worth the trip to Mexico just for this.
Steel Battalion is one of those cult games on the Xbox with a very hardcore group of fans. It had a huge controller that let you pilot a mech in the most elaborate way possible. It was awesome until developer From Software, yes, those are the guys behind Dark Souls, ruined it all. They thought it would be a good idea to get rid of the best part of the series, which was the controller. Playing Steel Battalion with Kinect did not work at all. This literally unplayable game provided us with one of the most frustrating experiences we've ever had. It self-destructed the Steel Battalion franchise and took Kinect hardware with it. So we guess there's a silver lining after all.
Hey, you can't stop a carrier that easily.
We can't blame you for not knowing what Unlimited Saga is. The Saga series were quirky RPGs made by Square Enix in the early 2000s. The games favored unique board game mechanics over more traditional RPG gameplay. Unlimited Saga for the PlayStation 2 was the last entry in the series that effectively killed the entire franchise. The board-like gameplay was a great hit in Japan, but Western gamers hated it. The game got destroyed in reviews for being extremely boring. As a result, it didn't sell many copies in Europe and the States. Square Enix quickly decided to abandon the series and focus more on games that do have appeal in the West. The Ultima games have a legendary status among older RPG fans. However, the disappointing final entry killed the entire franchise and dragged its good name through the mud. Gamers wanted to see how the epic saga spanning 9 games would end. Well, Ultima 9 Ascension had an ending so bad that it makes Mass Effect 3 look like a Shakespeare novel. Besides the terrible ending, it also had a much smaller world and generally unpolished look. It was later revealed that Ultima 9 was rushed to release a year before its lead designer Richard Garriott wanted. It shows that pushing a game out the door is rarely a good decision. Do you know any other games that destroyed their own franchise? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Ah!